Good Friday to everybody. Income 831. Welcome to week boom 7. Excuse me. We are almost to the halfway point. Hang on. So let's get this video started correctly. What do we have here for coffee cup? Some Great Smoky Mountains National Park. I highly recommend. Beautiful region of the country. Beautiful park. Very, very different topography. At least for where I grew up, that is in the West. When you get up into the Smoky Mountains, not particularly challenging altitude wise. You get up like 7,000 feet, I think, but weather and steepness of terrain more than make up for the lack of height. Very, very interesting terrain to hike through. If you get the opportunity to go, you should. Okay, well, enough about the natural wonders of our country. Let's turn to this week, what we're going to be doing, and then take a look at your stuff from last week and see what we can add. Okay, so week 7, we're going to finish up macroeconomics. That is, next week we'll get ready to start a new book. And you are working on your technology tool assignment. Now, somebody emailed me and said, hey, could we do the technology tool? Could we look at something that's AI? Yeah, hey, whatever the technology is. Look, I want to make this very clear. In fact, we're going to talk a little bit about AI and how it concerns you today when we look at the questions from last week. But let me make this clear. I don't have an issue with the presence of one technology as opposed to another. I mean, technologies always come with, blessings and curses, advantages and disadvantages, advancements and challenges. It's not the thing that's the issue, whether it's AI or it's social media, it's how the thing is used. So, yes, of course, if you want to write about the use of AI, that's fine. Make sure that your argument for whatever the technology is that you pick is convincing. And remember, there's 2 parts to the assignment, and I have to stress the second part, okay? The first part is the write-up about the thing. Then the second part is the video that you're going to make. Now, however you make your video, if you're doing it with your the camera on your phone or your webcam, I'm assuming if you have laptops, most of you have webcams. You need to platform it on a YouTube channel and then put that link, and you can just copy it and paste it into the document at the bottom of the document. The reason for that is, although Canvas says it will deal with stuff like, MP4s and Apple-based products, it really doesn't deal with them well. And something like, gosh, at least 50-50, maybe even higher, something like 70% of the time I try to open files that, at least in terms of the instructions that Canvas says it supports, it doesn't open it. I can't see it. Now I'm chasing you around going, hey, I didn't get your video. I can't give you credit for that half of the assignment that wasn't done. Okay, stop. I've decided this a couple of semesters ago. Put it on a YouTube channel. Now, if you don't know how to set up a YouTube channel, that's what Google and YouTube are for, and you can find out. And you can either keep it and use it for other classes, or when this class is done, you can delete it forever. Now, when you put the video on the YouTube channel, make sure that you click the for public view, because if you'll get a series of buttons. It's really short, but if you leave it for private view, meaning only you can see it, then I can't see it. And again, we're back to can't see it, won't load, can't give you points. Okay, so if you have any questions about that, contact me. All right, so that's what we're doing this week, finishing up, and I guess it's like March 25th, so you got a while to take care of this one. Okay, I have graded all of the discussion questions for weeks 1 through 4. Have I? No, I'm not quite finished with that. Okay, I'm just looking at my schedule things to do, but they're closed. right, if you haven't gotten the stuff in now, that's finished. I have read through all of your part 1, right? And I will start my feedback to you here probably today. Now, remember what I said last time, okay? That I'm going to give, especially the first couple of pages, very intense examination. And what I say, like, oh, yeah, hey, keep doing this, or, oh, hey, yeah, no, don't do this. Apply that throughout. All right. And if you get a note from me asking for us to talk a little bit, it's not necessarily something that's a problem. It just means that there's enough going on in there that I want to make sure that you are on the right track when it comes to finishing this thing up. Because remember, however much you improve on the second half, which is the whole thing drawn together, all right, if you improve, and it's run by percentage, if you improve, I will raise the grade on the first one. So maybe you score like 75 percent of the total points on the first one, and then on the second one, when you do the whole thing, you score 95. I'll raise the score 9 to 95, assuming you score higher, that you score higher because you've done what I've pointed out and examined in the first part. It's like, okay, you're doing more of this and you're doing less of that. So if you get a note from me, that just means there's enough going on in there that I really want to sit down and talk with you to make sure that you make the proper adjustments before you pull together the final paper. Okay, so watch for that coming your way. All right, okie dokie. Let's take a look at the questions from last week, see maybe what we could add and help flesh it out for you. We're going to talk a little bit about AI and some things that you need to sort of have a heads up for as people entering what is now a changing, and I think the term is fair, a disrupted strategic communications market. All right, and look, disruptions come, disruptions go, and some of them they bring opportunity. I mean, all disruption can be unpredictable, but it's not all bad. All right. So, question number 1: what are 2 important implications that new technology is creating for the future distribution of music, television, and film? Let's see, Austin, you went first. Let's take you first. I believe that there are numerous implications for the distribution of media going forward, one of which is the power distribution has shifted from mass market to the individual. True. And it's funny because you see this and new trends form, new groups of individuals working in common at something. It doesn't matter what that thing is, could be ditch digging or communication. One of the hallmarks, here's what you should look for. One of the hallmarks that this thing is moved now to a group dynamic, and it's starting to pick up momentum, is the group begins to craft and use vocabulary, nomenclature that's specific to who they are. So now you have musicians or writers or filmmakers, and you have indie media producers, writers, or filmmakers. Okay, it's perfectly accurate by way of description to say independent, but that's not part of the nomenclature. So yes, this has moved to the individual, and the irony is that now the individuals working together are forming their own market. Tapscott and Williams cite the 2007 Pew study that included the term content creator, although the term was novel in the late 2000s, has become a significant part of the vernacular distribution today. And there we go again, another signifier that this is a trend. And this is how you look for these things as a strategic communication craftsman. And I mean, this is a craft. All right, this is something that you practice at and you get better. You look for this designating nomenclature. Okay. The authors note that the use of YouTube and streaming music services like Spotify enable direct connection between the performer and the audience, which would not have been possible without modern technologies, and these platforms provide instant access and are not bound by time. Yeah, there's, once the thing is up, it's up. There's no like, oh, we have to wait for the release party and, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Then you say another major implication is that digital media has become collaborative, much, much easier to share across platforms. Not only did Tapscott Williams note that time does not constrain viewers from watching specific content, but viewers also provide significant influence over how content creators produce their shows. Specific examples mentioned by the author is that content creators often alter the aesthetic or the topic one may discuss in a talk show format, or I recall seeing several music covers by content creators selected specifically in response to viewer comments on YouTube. Yeah, we have way long ago, in terms of the effect of media platform, moved from monologue, in which either the record or the radio or the television or the newspaper was delivering to us a communication, to dialogue, in which the content creator still, something written, something recorded, something filmed, is now having a conversation. I saw a really fascinating study once. In fact, I've seen a couple of these that looked at the themes present and say, take a YouTube video. I sat on a dissertation of someone that did an examination of what could be called the rise of the non-expert expert. There's all these people on YouTube who dispense advice in specific areas, relationships, money, how to train your dog, whatever. Okay. And you're like, okay, what are the qualifications of this person to be telling me about how to run my dating life? I mean, if I had a dating life, I don't, but you know what I mean? Well, because they're here on the platform. All right. So one of the things interesting about the study is there was more theme development and exploration and extension. So there was the theme that came through in the video, but the greater discussion and development and extension of the theme, let's say the theme is, how do you get a first date? All right. The unpacking and the application, there was more of that in the comments, in the back and forth in the comments, than there was in the video. Right. That's one of the trends that you should be aware of as you move out into the field of strategic communication. It's not simply the communication that you put out, and that's like, oh, okay, woo, glad we got that off. No, that's the start of the communication. There's as much, if not more, communication going on in the response. And first and foremost, let us know there's an expectation that there's an avenue for response. So if you're working for a municipality or a company, and it's all just one way, in terms of how it's set up, it's monologue, you're almost asking. I mean, you're saying, how can I have communication consumer dissatisfaction? We'll put that at the top of the list. All right. So that's just the beginning of the communication. It's the back and forth that's the meat and potatoes. Okay. And so, yeah, that's going on as well. Good answer, Austin. Okay, question number 2. Despite the promise of political leaders to serve in government with openness and transparency, we've seen very little change in secrecy and closed-door deliberations. Tapscott and Williams had many ideas for changing our inept political system. Which one of these ideas, if any, might be implemented within the next 5 years? Says you is the point of asking that question. Alicia, let's go with you. I agree with Tapscott and Williams' 20 opinion that new waves of innovation over private sector are creating opportunities to harness new models of collaboration and innovation arriving at the doorsteps of government everywhere, despite many political leaders being mind-locked to outdated policies, procedures, and overall thinking. One of the ideas, I pray, grows stronger. Okay, interesting word. And widely implemented is domestic markets for public services. Okay. The government could still drag its feet and tinker with its own efforts to address underserved need, while a combination of public and private social technologies service providers could provide customizable and competitive options. That's an excellent point and an excellent answer. Because there's this dichotomy of opinion when it comes to services. And what I mean by that is it's not everybody, but typically people tend to fall on one side or the other of this opinion. And on the one side is services have to be done by governments because governments, people in government, they care. And people outside of government, they don't really care. They're just interested in profit. They're not interested in providing services. Governments, government entities, government agencies, they care. Then on the other side, people tend to fall into is having the motivation of, well, first of all, people that do things, that get attracted to doing things, whether that's picking up the garbage or providing counseling to help homeless people that get attracted to things get attracted to them because they do care. They just don't wake up one morning and go, oh, where do I go to work? Yeah, I don't know, I'll just pick up garbage. Maybe some, but people people that get pulled into things because they care. And then because there is the vested interest of, well, if you don't do your job well, you're not going to have a job. That is, there's a profit motive. They do it better than the people on the government side that don't have the same profit motive. And then the argument goes, and if you're asking me, this is my opinion, if this came up in an essay question on a test site, if you answer the question, that'd be fine. But if you ask me, between the two, I tend to throw my support behind the private sector because the pressure in the market to make the profit, to run the whatever it is, the service, allows those who organize and run it to fire those that don't perform. On the government side, that becomes much more difficult. And as a result, the delivery of services, not at everything, but if you average out a number of agencies, it tends to sag. It tends to lag. So either you have to have greater accountability and say, yeah, you're out of here on the government side, or you put your faith and your understanding in the motivation of the market to get rid of people that aren't performing. Okay. There's one other element, though, about this issue that I think Tapp, Scott, and Williams, I've read this book I don't know how many times, that it strikes me that they're nearly oblivious to, and I want to mention this just as an aside. One of the drawbacks that we should be aware of, now whether this becomes full stop in terms of how much information the public gets or not, that's a tougher question. But one of the aspects of transparent public communication that we need to be aware of as communication professionals is, what is it that the public is interested in being aware of? And I will illustrate this question, the importance of this question, through the current kerfuffle concerning the Jeffrey Epstein's files. Okay, what do I mean by that? Well, there's been this hue and cry, release the files, release the files. Okay. So files were released, but they were heavily redacted. Oh, no, you're hiding stuff from us. We need to know who the guilty are. Okay, first things first. By way of the news agencies that deliver the news and the consumers that read the news, and I'm serious about this, is it a call for the application of perfect justice that's driving the motivations, the calls to release the files? Or could it be the insatiable sensationalism, both on the part of the public and on the part of the media, that the public thrives on sensationalism and the media makes money by pumping out sensationalism? Because, and I am not suggesting that Jeffrey Epstein was a good guy. This is irrelevant to the point. Because if what we're after is justice, one of the first and fundamental cornerstones of our justice system is that you are innocent. until in a court of law you are proven guilty. And you can destroy an individual's life by allowing, information out that tries him or her in the public court. And no, they may not go to prison, but socially, financially, by way of the advancement and the operation of their career, they're done. They're done. I mean, look at what happened to the actor Kevin Spacey. Now, look, I think he's a brilliant actor. As a practicing homosexual, if I ever had the opportunity to sit down with him, I'd give him 6 reasons from Sunday why this is not a good thing to do, a good way to go. But the allegations that were brought against him that proved to be untrue have professionally, financially, personally, and emotionally destroyed this man. So I'm not pitching for, the actor here. That's not the point of making the point. But I'm sure you can think of some other, so-called canceled individuals that fell into that. So when was it that within the operation of justice that people don't get a fair trial and it's okay to release decontextualized information about them that then becomes they're tried in the public eye? No bueno, because we have a justice system that by design holds the principle of innocent before proven guilty to such a degree, with such sanctity, that now this isn't codified into law, okay, but the sentiment is it is better that 100 guilty go free, that 1 innocent is imprisoned. And if we're true to the fundamental principles of our justice system and how they're misapplied, and I'm not saying they're applied perfectly, Lordy, they are not. How they're misapplied, we need to be consistent. So when it comes to ultimate transparency, it's not as simple as saying, well, the government's probably up to something and we need to see everything. Maybe they are, maybe they aren't. Maybe there are reasons to keep information out of the public eye, like sensationalism that runs away with conclusions that aren't founded within our legal system. And you can have morally objectionable behavior that's not necessarily illegal. We can have behaviors go, yeah, you ought not to do that. But as far as how it's codified in law, okay. So I read that and I go, oh, okay, perfect transparency. Maybe, but that assumes that the audience is all understanding and all virtuous and slows down and considers all the facts, which I'm not convinced that it does. All right, so there, I spoke my piece. Question number 30. Do you believe that there's any hope to say print news will eventually meet its demise for reasons explained in Chapter 11? Please explain. Let's see. Carolyn, let's do you. Like Austin, I was surprised print news had lasted this long. Okay, she's referring to somebody's answer. But the more digital news I'm exposed to, the more I want to crawl into a hole, subscribe to a daily that gets tossed onto my lawn by a 14-year-old boy on a bike, and use it to wipe my windows or fire starter the next day. Pretty funny to read the book in 20, I think you said you got 2104, but I think it'd be 2014, 2026. And realize the participatory news culture is what platforms like TikTok are more or less hinging on today. Tapscott and Williams say the percentage of Americans who say news organizations get their facts straight has plummeted from 55 to 29, and it's even lower today, as you're intimating. Carol, 12 years later, I wonder what the statistics is, so I look at Pew again. Interestingly, this article segments trust statistic by Republicans, Democrats, respondent, but I imagine trust is much lower for independent registered voters like me. It also segments by age. Today, only around here, you're citing a source, only around 1/2 of adults under 50, 52% have a lot or some trust in the information of the national news media, much higher percentage cited than in 2009. because there is such little trust in the media today, because participatory news culture is making just about making just about any type of news accessible for free immediately. I don't think people will ever resume paying for print newspapers. And I think that's a fair analysis. You know, I mean, print news got killed by the algorithms that's Google. Okay. In fact, there is a terrific book that you ought to read, and I have a copy of it somewhere. But I think I lent it out to somebody. And it's called The Search. And it's about how Google came around and how they changed with, it was when Google started, okay, their intention, they were sort of mimicking, paralleling what goes on in academic publication. That is, how do you know something is true? So in academic publication, the way it goes is you link backwards to citations. So you cite things that have been cited by people that have been cited by people, and they're all pointing to that thing saying, okay, the conclusion, this is how we know it's true. So the first version of Google was a program, not surprising that this didn't catch on, and they called it Backrub. Okay, weird. But what they meant by that is that we're going to go backwards to see how many people, say this is true. Okay, the guy that wrote the book, his name is John Battelle, and it's Battelle, John Battelle, John. And the title of the book is The Search, How Google and Its Rivals Rewrote the Rules of Business and Transformed Our Culture. And so he takes you through how it was created and when they started to roll it out. And they realized Google, Sergey Brin and Larry Page, the guys who invented Google, the only way we're going to make money with this is if we're going to make the information valuable to people. So they hit on an idea. What if we made search results available to businesses? Because hitherto, prior to that, when a business wanted to advertise in print news, okay, they got charged a rate based on the size that they took up, how much space they took up on the page, and the subscription rate, how many people subscribed to the publication. That set the price. Now, the unknown for the advertiser was A, how many people saw their ad, because of a given size, like a full page, different than a little box. Okay. Or B, how many people even open the paper to that page? Because some people would just go to the sports. Some people will go to the comics. Some people will go to the op-ed section. Some people will go to the international news and fundamentally read nothing else. And then the paper would go for fire starter or window cleaning or line a cat box or a bird cage. And that was it. Google came along and said, you know what? We have the technology to tell advertisers exactly how many people see their ad. Now, in their early days, they did not, but they developed algorithms, data capturing programs that told the advertisers demographically who was looking at their stuff, how many people clicked on the ad and went to the advertiser's website, and then of the number that went to the website, how many people completed fulfillment. That is what the advertiser wanted you to do. Buy this thing, get this service, whatever. Kabam. The price for advertising plummeted because it was cheaper. Google could charge substantively less because they made money by scale. Saying, well, we only charge a penny it really was, I've used Google Ads. It's a percentage of a 1%. So like 0.02%. So less than 1/4 of 1% of a penny every time somebody clicks on the ad. But if you do that for 50,000 clients or 50 million clients or 5 billion clients, now you're talking about some serious money. And it pulled the rug out from underneath print news. All right. Can it come back? I don't know. Now, here's one of the interesting things that I can tell you is happening in the communication world. There is a resurgence in print reading that's been happening. It's really been going on for almost the last 10 years. And it was sort of steadily climbing. And then when COVID hit, it went off the charts, which is in a way a little counterintuitive, because you would think, okay, with COVID, everybody's locked in. Aren't they spending all their time on their screen reading stuff? One of the things that came out of it was that it was clear people began to miss the tactile nature, because we're tactile creatures, all right, of the reading experience. So what shot up was the print of publications that are not newsy, okay, but are tactile based. This is, for instance, this is a magazine that I write for. It's called Hearth and Field. You check out their website, okay? They're very, very cool, these guys. I really love what they're up to. They're sort of down to earthy. This is how you have a more Christian, calmer life. Okay, they have reviews. They have, I mean, they'll have articles. It might be something on like how to poach an egg, or homeschool your kids, or a different approach to thinking about your spirituality. Okay, very cool. Hearth and Field. All right. I did a project with the editor. He's a good friend of mine, and in which I helped him run a survey amongst the current digital subscribers, and their rate of paper subscription has just jumped off the charts because people want something they can hold. So maybe news is going, but there are other places in which print is staying and growing. I didn't mean for that to rhyme. It just did. Okay. And lastly, question number 4. Among the 5 priorities of innovation discussed by Tapscott and Williams, which one should be a priority being implemented in an organization that you are in? And here, it's interesting. A number of you're taking this very seriously. Now, this is not a question that I'm going to hold you accountable for. But it was just interesting to read some of your responses, like Trinity. If I look at this through the local government communications, a priority that should be rise to the top is collaboration across boundaries. Let's see. We already have people and solid systems. If collaboration becomes operational, we would see faster innovation, strong public trust, fewer reactive communication crises. And that's a good point. A lot of communication is just that. I mean, it's certainly that way in our governmental organizations. Like Congress is primarily a reactive, not a proactive body. Which, on the one hand, you want your systems of government being responsive, but on the other hand, reacting, say, "Oh, we got to do something." Well, it's not always the case that doing something is better than waiting to see what it is that you should do. Sometimes, in extreme cases, anything is worse than nothing. So you're right. That would be interesting. Okay. But again, that's not an answer I'm going to dig into, because that's probably not one that you would see on the test. Okay, everybody. Thank you very, very much. Watch for my feedback on your papers coming soon. Keep on keeping on. Okay. And, working on that technology tool assignment. If you have any questions, make sure that you email me or catch me during my office hours. And remember, I do think about you. I do pray about you. And I will see you on Canvas. Take care. Bye-bye.